Coming up on the show, we take a behind-the-scenes look at some local zoos to see what a day in the life is like for a park curator and a veterinarian. Hi, I'm Alexandra Rosenfeld, and this is A Day in the Life. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at people who don't exactly have ordinary desk jockey jobs. Not that there's anything wrong with those jobs, but these are just a little cooler. Today we're on the road, and we're headed to Providence, Rhode Island to meet Pat Sharkey, the curator at the Roger Williams Park Zoo. Yes, his last name is pretty cool, but so is his job.
Dr. Vint was here yesterday doing our behavioral management. He'll be back again around the end of July for the next session of behavioral management training. And other than that, disinfectants for our change in disinfectants, tree kangaroo, babirusa, and commissary bottles are still outside the office, so those can be picked up and go down.
Pat Sharkey has been the curator at the Roger Williams Park Zoo for 9 years. He's been in the animal business, however, for over 20 years. After college, Pat worked for SeaWorld in California first, then in Texas.
From there, I had an opportunity to move to Galveston, Texas, and work at a place called Moody Gardens, which gave me a chance to broaden my horizons. Up until that point with SeaWorld, I mostly worked with penguins and waterfowl, so I was working with birds. Moving to from SeaWorld to Moody Gardens, I was able to work with fish, start to work with mammals.
And that work paid off when Pat made his way to the Northeast and Roger Williams Park Zoo. We mentioned that he's a curator, but what exactly does that entail?
I oversee the animal collection. I oversee the staff that takes care of the animal collection. That also includes overseeing the staff that does our food preparation in our commissary, our records keeping work that's required to maintain, accurate animal records.
Pat says that his job is to make sure all the zookeepers who work under him have the tools they need to do their jobs. And their jobs are to directly care for the animals in the park. Pat's day begins with an 8 a.m. staff meeting to make sure all the zookeepers know their assignments for the day.
Okay, Rocky's you're going to go up the tropics to cover staffing in the areas. I think that's everything we've got.
After Pat makes sure that everyone is on the same page, he begins his first project of the day. That takes him to the Australasia exhibit, where he will be moving some fish from the quarantine area to the display tank.
Probably catch up the 4 fish that are in here. I'll fill this bucket about halfway with water. I'll net them up and transfer them, and then we'll take them over to where the other tank is. And I'll go ahead and then acclimate them by adding water from that tank in, and then once I've filled the bucket about 3/4 of the way up, then I'll go ahead and just pour them into the tank.
All animals need to be quarantined when they first arrive at the zoo. Pat and his zookeepers need to make sure that the new animals aren't sick or carrying a bacteria that could prove harmful to the existing display.
Most of them are not exceptionally colorful or anything like that, so these guys are kind of pretty with a little bit of the orange coloration to them. So when we transfer them, we try and, not to handle them at all in the net. And I was just trying to take my time as far as actually getting them caught. I need to chase them around. They eventually will swim in where I want them to.
Once Pat gets the fish into the bucket, he'll take them behind the display case so they can be added to the tank.
This tank has actually has 2 package filter systems similar to what you can buy for an aquarium. There's one on that side of the tank down on the rack and another one down here. And it's basically just a cartridge filter that has a series of types of filtration in it. It has foam filters for mechanical filtration. It has what we call biomedia, which is a star-shaped plastic or ceramic bead that provides for bacteria to adhere to that, which the bacteria is what we want to have growing. The nitrifying bacteria breaks down the ammonia, which is a byproduct from the fish. So it flows through that, and then the final process is we have an area they call for chemical filtration, which we can put in different types of chemical, or not chemicals, but materials like carbon that will absorb impurities in the water. So we end up with fresh water. So that's being recirculated on both sides of the tank. There's a standpipe here and in the front corner there that draws water up, runs through the filter, and then it returns in these two areas here, flowing back. And then in addition, this tank has another, and the back side has what we call a sump. The water flows across the surface, drops into the sump, and then just goes through a pump and is recirculated back up here and put back into the tank. Are you ready out front? Okay. So basically what I'm doing here is, again, I'm not going to pour them in or force anything out. I'll just basically get the bucket in, turn it up sideways, and they'll kind of swim out on their own. The whole idea being to maintain or to eliminate or reduce any kind of stress involved. If you're going to have any problems with fish diseases popping up, it's usually associated with stressful events, changes in the water chemistry, changes in temperature, things like that.
When it comes to protocol, Pat takes charge of setting up the displays. He will then pass on the maintenance work to his zookeepers.
Basically, the way we work everything here is I've worked on setting the tank up, getting everything up and running, and then my job is to pass along to the keeper staff how to maintain it and take care of it. And then I obviously serve as a resource for them if they're having problems or questions. And my job as a curator also is to be walking around looking at the tank, hopefully spotting, if I spot something going on that maybe they haven't seen or that, be able to bring it to their attention.
As Pat walked around the park to check on the zookeepers and the animal displays, we came upon the penguins and sea lions. He explained to us the process of training the animals.
This is another example of a species that we do a lot of training work with, so that medically we can do a lot of our work with them. They're trained to approach, they're trained to station and hold a position so the vets can look in their eyes. They're trained to open their mouths so that vets can look in their mouths. We're currently working with them to hold still and let us actually do a blood draw on them. So those are the kinds of behaviors. Some people think of, oh, do you teach them tricks? Well, we don't really teach them tricks. We teach them behaviors that allow us to more effectively manage their health. That's why I was curious to see if they're working in the elephant yard. That was one of my suspicions. They might be out and cleaning in the elephant yard before they put them out on exhibit. Nope, elephants are already out on exhibit. A lot of times with our later light, and the zoo closes at 4, so we actually have time in the afternoons to get the cleanings done, so in the morning they can just come right out. When we put this exhibit together, we look at ways to keep them active as much as possible. You can see that we have a hanging cargo nets that we put their hay and stuff in. So they have to work at a little harder to get the food. They've got a scratching post. They've got an area that's set up to be a mud wallow. They've got the new pool so they can get in the water and swim. We've got a pad out here, which is, these guys need a lot of skin care. In the wild, they spend a lot of time in the water and then in their mud wallows, and that's all keeping their skin moisturized. So we basically give them a bath almost every day, and we're set up so we can actually do the bath outside during the warmer months. They all have different personalities. Just looking, this is Alice. She is
not the youngest. She's the smallest of our 3 elephants. The one that is currently feeding from the cargo net is Kate. She is the matriarch. Their normal herd dynamics is there's always a female matriarch. She's kind of the leader of the pack. She's the boss. And then the other one, who's our largest, is Ginny. And those are the 3. We've got 3 females here at the zoo. To give you a feel for scale when you're dealing with elephants, the strength that's necessary for keeping them in. The way this is designed is that we can close these gates on both sides, and it gives the elephants direct access out into their exhibit yard. At nighttime, we can give them access to just the building. We can give them the building in this yard. We can give them all 3. So we've got a lot of opportunities and ways to move things around. Yeah. Okay. You guys can walk over on this side because Alice can see us. Yeah. What we're trying to do is stay over this way so the elephants don't see us, because then she gets nervous what's going on over here and she's not paying attention to her commands. So this is the biggest really piece of our elephant building, and this is what we call the sand room. This is a natural substrate. There's no constructed floor in this room. It's all natural sand down about 2 feet, and then there's gravel and dirt, which has been really great because it's a natural substrate. It's easy on their feet. They can dig in it. Any urine and stuff just percolates right through. So it's the first of its kind in the United States, and it's a prototype. A lot of other zoos are coming and looking at it and wanting to know how we're doing this, because it's just a great environment for the elephants. The other elephant spaces that you can see, there's 2 accesses up to the front exhibit space. Here we have a more confined hallway area that we can stop an elephant in if we want to do any exams and we need the bollards and protection there. They've got automatic waterers. You can see the trolleys and stuff in the overhead areas, again, for putting in the hay and enrichment stuff, things to keep them busy on a long-term basis.
The Roger Williams Park Zoo had many representatives from other zoos come to see this elephant house. That's another part of Pat's job, talking to other curators and staff of other zoos across the country.
Conversing with my other professional colleagues around the country and sending them information. I might be dealing with a problem that we're having with an animal or something, and I don't know what the answer is, and I may be, reaching out to other colleagues and saying, hey, we're seeing this. Has anybody else seen that, or anybody else dealt with a problem like that? How have you dealt with it? So it works very tight into a network of other curators at the other zoos around the country.
Pat may not converse with other curators every day, but he certainly does with his own staff, and he is constantly trying to improve and change the look of the exhibits.
I'm with Amberella, who's our lead keeper in our North America area. Her responsibility is obviously all of the animals in the North America area and overseeing the keepers there. And we're checking tomorrow. We'll be bringing a red panda out of our veterinary quarantine and bringing her up to introduce to the exhibit and eventually introduce to the male who we have on exhibit. Red pandas are an SSP program. So again, we have a breeding recommendation for this female, so we're looking forward to that. So I was just here to check with Ann and see, what kind of things have you got in place? Are you ready for her tomorrow?
We are ready for tomorrow. Inside the holding, we have pretty much everything set up. We just need to get a branch to connect that outer door to the perching. And we might do 2, like an outer door, so if she's comfortable just going right up to the perches, and an outer door if she's comfortable going down on the ground. Okay. Other than that, just put shavings on the ground and we're ready to go. Inside the holding, we have like 2 shelves set up for her to lay on, and we have a box on the ground, a wooden box, and like 3 perches connecting, her to the different levels in there.
And all of our introduction doors are set up with screening so that they can be face to face.
Not quite yet. We're going to get that because I figure the first couple of days we just let her alone to get acquainted to her holding. Correct.
Yep.
And then, but yeah, I'll definitely have that today. So and I'll put it in there too, so it'll be easy.
So it's set to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, then it sounds like we're ready to bring her over and introduce her and let her get acquaintance, get her used to the exhibit, used to her holding, and then eventually get her used to her potential new mate.
Yeah. So yeah, tomorrow, as soon as Bonnie says it's all right, we'll try and get her down here as early as possible, so we'll have as much time throughout the day to monitor her.
Monitor her. Okay.
Even though she'll just be confined to holding tomorrow, but still, just to make sure everything's going okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'd give her a couple days in holding,
Yeah.
and then maybe if you can give her visual access to the exhibit, and then maybe we'll keep him in for a day or two, let her
And then
explore
let her
in the
explore
exhibit.
on her own.
Yeah.
Okay. Because yeah, once she's out there, and probably even in holding, she's going to be aware of his presence anyway. So
Sounds good.
okay.
Okay.
Great.
Sounds like we're ready to go.
Thank you.
Yep.
One of Pat's last stops of the day is the butterfly exhibit, where there are always new butterflies hatching.
So the butterfly exhibit was put together to be a seasonal, summertime exhibit, and it was very successful last year. We decided to do it again this year, and then our plans are that this general area, including where the greenhouse is, will go into a renovation phase, and we'll start developing our New England Trail exhibits. What we do is we get chrysalis from growers. We let the butterflies emerge. The butterflies fly around, but there's no host plant for them to lay their eggs on for the caterpillar, so they don't have a complete life cycle. That's mainly because that material is something that could be moved out easily, or the caterpillars could get out. So we don't have that. And our main goal is to have the butterflies. That's what people want to see and want to experience as them flying around.
It's easy to see that Pat loves his job. The toughest part for him is a similar theme you find everywhere in all businesses these days.
We have a budget that we have to work within, and it's trying to squeeze the most out of that budget that we possibly can, and finding ways to get things done, not on a shoestring, because we have a good budget, but finding ways to stretch it out as far as we can, because the more we can stretch it, the more we can do. The more we can do, the more attractions, new animals, new exhibits, things there are for our guests to come back and see.
And so ends a day in the life of Pat Sharkey, curator at the Roger Williams Park Zoo in Providence, Rhode Island. But don't go anywhere. When we return, we'll introduce you to a brother and sister that work hard to keep the Southwick Zoo running strong.
Hi, firefighter Mark Asenko here with some safe summer tips for you. It's summertime, and that means it's grill time. But before we get started, here are 3 safety tips that you need to know. Before you turn on the gas, make sure the cover is up. Make sure you turn on the gas slowly. When igniting, keep your face away from the grill. Follow these tips and you'll have a safe and tasty barbecue.
I'm Alexandra Rosenfeld, and you're watching A Day in the Life. If you're just joining us, you missed out on a day in the life of a curator at the Roger Williams Park Zoo. Now we're going back to the zoo, this time to the Southwick Zoo in Mendon, Massachusetts. There, we will meet siblings who work together to keep the zoo up and running. Welcome to the Southwick Zoo, a family-run business on a former family farm that dates back to 1803.
Stretch, come on over. Come here. Come here, girls. Siblings, same litter. Really? Yeah. Hi there, girl. Shh. 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 See, to me, the orange is just so much more beautiful.
Meet Betsy Brewer, Executive Director of the Southwick Zoo. As she told us, her job entails anything and everything, from cleaning up trash that didn't quite make its way into a can to raising zoo animals in her home. Seriously, she did that. You don't believe us?
I took care of a Siberian tiger for him once, a black leopard, a regular spotted leopard, a mountain lion, the lions that we have here.
Betsy doesn't do this just for the kicks. Sometimes the female will not mother its baby, so somebody needs to step up and care for the animal.
I guess it's just that I always raised a lot of animals and took care of them, and believe me, at this stage of the game, I don't like it when moms aren't taking care of their babies. It's a lot of work. It's feeding around the clock, it's care, it takes a lot of energy, it really does. And the best place for the babies to be is with their moms. So I just love large cats. House cats, all right with, but I love the big cats. I think they're so cool, and leopards to me are one of the most exciting animals that there is. They have that combination of instinct and intelligence that you just rarely find. You get the instinct usually or the intelligence, but with leopards you get it all, and I just love them.
Like a curator, Betsy spends her day checking on the exhibits and the zookeepers and volunteers in charge of the health and safety of the animals.
So these are Borneo bearded pigs. They were born here at the zoo around May 22nd or so they're about a month and a half old. As you can see, they're looking for their bottles, and as soon as they discover that Tiffany has them, but you'll see that they suck these things right down like nothing. Their mom wasn't taking care of them, so we had to pull them from their mom. And there was actually 6 that were born. Only half of them survived, which is pretty typical for a wild animal. But these are Borneo pigs, so they're Asian. They're a lot different than the other pigs that you see, like potbelly pigs or even Yorkshire pigs in captivity or on farms. They're very long and slender. They have these long snouts, so they don't get the big bellies, and they'll get to be about 300 pounds, where a potbelly is about 60 or 70 pounds, and of course, some of the other pigs can be well over 1,000 pounds. These guys are not as hyper as aggressive as a warthog. They're a little calmer, and that's because they don't have as many predators, and they're also in very large groups traveling together. So it's nice for us that we can raise pigs that are not off the wall like the warthogs, and they'll actually, as you can see, they have harnesses on them so we can walk them around the zoo, and people just love that. They love the interaction with them. That's not to say when they're adults that they're going to be our little pets. They are wild animals. They'll have tusks, and they're very strong. Their noses are like shovels to dig down into the sand. And as you can see, they downed that bottle very quickly.
Betsy also interacts with the zoo's visitors. Since she has cared for so many of these animals, she's always got a good story to tell.
So he was doing backflips across the basement floor. I've never seen anything so hyper in all my life as a warthog. This is actually a leopard that we had here at the zoo for many, many years, and she died of old age. And this zebra was stillborn, baby that was born, not alive. And what happened was one of the guys that does taxidermy work for us took the leopard and the baby zebra and did this awesome replication of what would happen if a baby zebra was stillborn out in the wild. The leopard would drag it up into a tree, and that would be his dinner for a couple days. So it's really cool. It's a great learning tool to teach kids about predator-prey relationships. And this happens to be a bad relationship for the zebra.
Part of Betsy's day is spent in the old family farmhouse that now serves as the offices. It also serves as a working space for the veterinarian, who is also her brother, Peter Brewer.
I sort of went back to school late in life and graduated from Tufts when I was almost 41 years old. So I've been practicing. I'm getting old now. I'm 52, so I've been practicing for about 10, it'll be almost 11 years.
Peter showed us around the clinic in the old farmhouse. If you can't picture Peter dragging a giraffe into this space, it's because he doesn't. When they need to help out any of the larger animals, they will go to them.
So with the zoo here, probably 90% of what we do is animal husbandry and just taking good care of the animals, keeping them on a proper diet, make sure they have fresh and good food every day and water. And that makes my job a lot easier, so I don't have to do a lot of vet work. But when we do get an animal that's injured, we can bring it up to the clinic here, and we can do what we have to do. We have machines to anesthetize the animal, so we can do minor operations.
When a larger animal is in need of some attention, Peter's biggest concern is sterilizing the area.
You have to be very careful, depending on what it is. I mean, sometimes we've had to do hoof trims on the giraffes, and we have to anesthetize them for that. So it's not like a procedure where they can get contaminated. But if one had a cut or something like that, and we had to sew it up, obviously if it's out in the field, it has much more of a chance of getting contaminated. So we try and, minimize that by either draping the area off or putting a drape on the animal to keep the field sterile when we work on the animal. but obviously the big animals have to be done out in their exhibits. And that's the way it is with most zoos, although some of the bigger zoos now do have large hospitals that they can bring the animals and even larger animals to do work on.
Putting the animal to sleep is a big job in itself. Peter has what all good vets at a zoo need, a blowpipe.
The zoo animals, you know, if we have to work on a primate, if it's got a bite wound or we have to do a C-section or something like that, you know, we have to anesthetize them. And sometimes with the smaller ones, we can grab them in a net and just give them an injection or put them in a squeeze cage to give it. But some of the bigger ones, we have to use either a blowpipe or a pistol or a rifle with a dart to get the drug into them so we can anesthetize them and sedate them to get them up to the clinic.
The drug that is used in the small darts is the same that is used for domesticated dogs and cats. Peter gets a more concentrated drug so that he doesn't need to use as much to get the animal down.
And these are actually have a preset charge in there. When it hits, the charge from the negative pressure will go off and push the drug in. Now when you see this, the dart will go in and it'll spark, and that means that the charge went off and the drug went in. So you can see this when I shoot it. You see that? You see it sparked right there? And they have to be still, and it's hard to, you know, even there, there's not, you got to hit them in a good muscle mass to get this into the bloodstream. So it's usually the gluteus maximus is where we try for.
Since Peter is the one who takes care of the animals when they are sick, they have come to recognize him as the person that knocks them out. When they see him coming with the blowpipe, they go to the back of the exhibit. So it can be hard to drug them sometimes.
This is a gun that we'd use for some of the larger animals, like the deer and the elk, if we had to anesthetize one of them. And this shoots the same type of projectile, but it has a charge in here, and it has different settings on the gun, so that and it has a scope, which makes it nice. And I've had this gun for 15 years, so nobody else uses this one. I know where it shoots, and I don't want the scope to get messed up or anything, because it takes a while to get them sighted in. And this shoots a same type of dart. It's a little different. It's made for a rifle, and same principle. You just inject the drug in, but because this is a rifle and it's charged, it can shoot for a longer distance. So we still do the same thing. We still concentrate the anesthetic liquid so we can use a smaller dart, which is better. But with a gun like this, we can hit something from maybe 20 or 30 yards away.
These darts are what Peter uses for the big cats, like the lions and tigers. Since they have always seemed to be in such good health, he hasn't needed to use them. Peter relies on his zookeepers to let him know when they think an animal doesn't look right. Before Peter's day ends, he needs to do a blood draw on a goat that was having some problems. One of his zookeepers helps out by holding the animal.
So Dwayne, my trusty assistant, is going to hold the goat while we take a little more blood from it. So he's just going to hold the neck up there, and what we do is we put a little alcohol on the site so we can find the vein. And that's just so it sort of takes the bacterial numbers down. And then what we're going to do is find the vessel in here. And he's been through this, so he knows what this is. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm holding the jugular vein off. I don't know if you can get that with your camera, but it raises the vessel up. And then when I let my thumb off here, see it go down? See that? I don't know if you can see that, but that gives me a way to visualize it. And then you got to be a little aggressive when you go in to get the blood, and you can see it coming into the syringe there. Good goat.
There is a lot to love about Peter's job, especially if you're an animal fan. What is his favorite part?
The best part of my job is if I do get a sick animal and I can heal it and it gets back to normal. And that's the best part.
That's going to do it for this episode of A Day in the Life. If you have any ideas for future episodes, feel free to contact us by email. To find out more about WMCT, you can visit us on the web. I'm Alexandra Rosenfeld. We'll see you next time.